Welcome to the Root of Power podcast, where I teach you how to step into your power, find alignment, and create a life that you love using holistic methods, interviews with industry leaders, and inspiring stories from people who know that true freedom is found within. I'm your host and health and wellness bestie, Amanda Chills, and I'm so proud of you for choosing to step into the root of your power.
Okay, hello podcast fam! We are here with the co-owner of Four Saints Brewing Company in Asheboro, where their tagline is great beer for great people, and it is super legit. Welcome, Joel!
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. My pleasure to be here.
So can you tell us about you?
That's a long story, short story.
We have an hour, so whichever you want to do. This is your adventure.
I'll give you the medium story. So, family's from Southwest Pennsylvania. Mom and dad grew up there, met up there, got married, and then moved down to North Carolina. Started a family. So there's myself, and I have a younger brother and a younger sister. Once the three of us were born, they wanted to move us back up to Pennsylvania to grow up around aunts, uncles, grandparents, all that stuff. And so they did, and so I was about 5. And at that time, I told everybody up there, once we got back to Pennsylvania, that I was going to move back to North Carolina because I hated Pennsylvania. So at 5, I don't know what I based that on, just other than change, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure if I have Estella who's 6, and I'm sure if we moved her somewhere, she'd feel the same. But anyway, so we moved up there, told everybody I was going to move back to North Carolina, and fast forward, went through high school, went to Washington Jefferson College in Washington, and got a psychology degree. I started college with the intent of being a pediatrician. So
You have very pediatrician energy. I can feel it. Yeah.
Thanks. Because I loved our pediatrician. I can still see his face. I can't remember his name. It was Dr. Stocker, or something like that. But I remember it just being really positive and helping people, and so I wanted to be a pediatrician. Got to college, and that freshman year of Bio 101, Chem 105. Like the school I went to, W&J has a great pre-med program, and it's great because they weed out people really early.
Yeah.
Really early.
They're like, we're gonna crush your soul. Early.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. So between that, me not 100% realizing what it was going to take to become a doctor.
Yeah.
And really having my first sense of freedom that I exploited, and just I partied a lot. Like it was bad. It wasn't. I mean, I'm a cautionary tale when it comes to that. So,
sure.
And Estelle will hear that at some point. But between that and not really understanding kind of the gravity of it, like how much money going to college cost, and the privilege that I had to be there, even at that school, especially at that school, it was lost. It was completely lost on me, so I took it for granted. But I finished. I graduated. My sophomore year, I changed between. At one point, I was a literature major. At one point, I was a sociology major. At one point, I was a philosophy major. At one point, I was one of those undeclareds. And then psychology just kind of spoke to me. I enjoyed it. Those are the classes that I got the most into, and that I'd have those kind of conversations with other students and the teachers, and professors. So I stuck with that and wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. And my senior year, I did an internship with a intensive after school, like an emotionally intensive after school program. So these are kids that would go to school, and then afterwards they would come and hang out and work on how to express their feelings and how to control their feelings and all that kind of stuff. And that's it was a great
awesome.
it was a great experience. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it so much that I thought maybe this is what I need to do. And then there was a day we took them to a swimming pool, and I taught a kid how to doggy paddle from one side to the other, and just that experience of teaching, that was the moment I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. And so I went to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh and got my elementary degree master's. During that time, it was, let's find a place to work. And so during that time, when I was working after college and going to Duquesne, I was working at an alternative high school where I was teaching 9th and 10th grade. And so these were kids that essentially got kicked out of their schools for fighting, drugs, I mean, you name it. And so it was 2 streets down from where I lived. They were looking for a teacher assistant. I was like, great, get some experience while I'm going to school for this. And it was a much bigger experience than I anticipated, right? Because
that's like trial by fire.
Oh yeah,
all day long, all day long. Because those kids are so hardened by life, and they smell disingenuity, disingenuineness, like 10 miles away.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they smell new teachers 10 miles away.
Oh yeah, they
definitely trial by fire.
They had they almost had an SOP for new teachers, and like the students, like how we're going to run them through the ringer and see if they're tough enough to stick around,
right?
See if they care enough to stick around, see if they're dumb enough to stick around. So,
we'll just say persistent enough.
Yeah. But they, so I went to teach there, and that wasn't a world that I grew up around. I mean, we grew up in the country, like Randolph County. Like when you get out to certain parts of Randolph County, like when you're heading out towards like Randleman or Siler City or any of those places, like that's the kind of place that I grew up in. So we grew up in the country. My high school class was 112 people maybe, and it was mostly white. But so walking into this alternative high school where it was mostly black, most people that don't look like me, most people that didn't come from experiences that I came from, and it all came down to that being genuine. Like it didn't matter where you came from, didn't matter where I came from. I'm just here to try to make your day a little bit better. And so learned a lot. There's those kinds of stories where the kids would come in, and some mornings they'd come in and they were just ready to rip and tear and go crazy, and you go crazy is the wrong word. They were ready to rip and tear and release. Yeah. And because there was one morning a girl came in and she was just, from the moment she walked through the door, she was just going after everybody, just in every way that she could, and not physically, but just emotionally and verbally as much as she could. And so there was a lot of people in that school that got it, like don't go after her. If something happened, you get somebody who's in that mindset to the point of being able to verbalize what happened prior instead of why you feel that way, and then she breaks down and shares that she was up all night because her mom wasn't home and she didn't know where her mom was, and mom came home about a half hour before she had to go to school, so she was up all night. Mom came into the house with a guy she didn't know, and mom's intoxicated in some way or form, and she has to go to school, because if she doesn't go to school, the school has to report that to the court, and if she doesn't show up for school, she ends up in juvie.
She ends up in juvie, and probably her mom ends up in jail.
Right.
Which is
and so she left.
An interesting thing that our court system does.
Right. And so she left, and she left home because she had to, worried about her mom all night, worried about her mom now, not knowing who this guy is. And what's a 13-year-old kid who's been through the ringer herself? What's she gonna do to process those feelings in a way that's gonna try and release it? And so that was one thing. Stepping back and being able to understand how to talk to people about those kinds of things. And then, there was one guy who he number of drug charges, and one day he and I were sitting at lunch, and I asked him, why do you do this? Like, why do you continue to do this? And he said, it's real easy. He goes, my mom gets her checks. My mom takes her checks and she spends them on stuff for herself. I have a little brother, a little sister, and there's no food in the house. And he's essentially, I'm the one who's got to take care of him.
He's an entrepreneur.
Right.
Right.
And I said, get a job at McDonald's. And he was like, and it doesn't pay as much. And he said, yeah, that would be easy because he was 17, and he's like, if at 12 I hadn't gotten in trouble because I stole something, and now I have a record, and so I can't just go work at McDonald's, but I need to take care of my brother and sister, and the system says they're helping me because they're sending money to my mom,
right?
And she's doing enough to say that she's doing stuff, but the clothes on her back says it's not turning into macaroni and cheese on my table. So I had to make a choice. If I want to take care of my brother and sister, this is what I can do. Yeah. And I can and he looked at me and he's like, and I'm damn good at it. so
I used to work with my first job out of college was working with really high risk families. And when you're exposed to that world, it radicalizes you because you start seeing. So I grew up similar, like very privileged, mostly white high school, lived in we were privileged growing up. And so working within that system, you don't know because it's so different. And so when you work with kids and you really start seeing, because a lot of the rhetoric that we grew up with in America is like, it's you and you're in charge of your destiny and you can change anything. And that's like, okay, yeah, to a certain point, but doing that to the point where it's systemic, like a lot of people really don't understand, if they haven't grown up in it or they haven't been exposed to it, what systemic poverty, racism, sexism, what it does to people and how they have to make choices to survive, and then we shame those individuals for surviving. So I didn't actually know all that about you, so I really want to dig into that more because I think a lot of people don't understand, and I want to educate people. Yeah. So if you don't work in a school system or in a healthcare system at all, that's a totally different conversation. But if you're not doing it in a low income, high poverty, high crime area, like you really don't understand the nuances of why people do things. So like I worked with a 17-year-old who was my first case. Yeah. Did not give a damn about me. His was so disadvantaged by the system, like 100% was never going to succeed no matter what he did because of multiple reasons, and it was really eye-opening, and you really start having a lot of empathy. So it starts training you to have empathy, where that's a thing I think a lot of people struggle with right now is they see it very black and white. Well, if you wanted to change your circumstances, you would, or if you wanted to get out of it, you would, and it's like, yeah, but some people have a staircase and some people have 10,000-pound lead boots on. And so it's completely different when you do those things. So, yeah, just keep going.
Yeah. Well, in that to that point of, once you're quote unquote in the system, things like while we were growing up, we weren't. I can say we were not dirt poor. We were poor. And we were on welfare at one point, and the food stamps and free and reduced lunch. And I mean that was us, like middle school through high school.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where people are like, well, look, you were there, you did it, and look at you now. Like,
so different.
Right. Yes, you're right. That we were there and we weren't, and then we weren't. And there's amongst that, there was a lot of other stuff.
There's so many variables people don't see.
Right. And so there was where we grew up. Again, wasn't an affluent area. I mean, it's just like anywhere else. You had the haves, the have-somes, and the have-nots. have lots.
Yeah, the have mores, I guess.
and then there was some with the have-nots, and so just that a majority of where we were in the have some area, like that alone already puts me a step ahead. You know, I've got, you know, my mom and dad they're still married. They were still together. I'm a step ahead.
Yeah.
You know, the color of my skin, I'm a step ahead. I'm a guy, I'm a step ahead. So that's not lost on me, but it is easy for some people to be able to narrow it down to one thing and say, well, look.
Right.
And it's like, no, there's so much more. There's so much more to it.
I think people don't understand intersectionality, which is where, for people that don't know, it's where multiple identities exist. So like, you're a man, you're white, you're from this area, you have this level of education.
Yep.
And a really interesting, for anyone that's interested in just digging into it, Google it, right? Intersectionality. There's a ton of articles and books on it. But a really interesting exercise to figure out kind of where you exist on that is to list all the ways in which you are oppressed, and then list all the ways into which you are the oppressor.
Right.
So, for example, for me as a woman, like, I'm a woman, so patriarchy exists, I'm oppressed, but I have a master's degree.
Right.
But I grew up with a family who has money. All of those things, like, I didn't have to pay for college because my parents paid for it. That's a way in which I'm an oppressor, and it really, for anyone interested in doing that, that's a really good exercise to be like, oh, I'm both.
Yeah.
And
have you seen the it kind of went viral maybe a year or two ago. They've got a bunch of teenagers lined up, and it's guys and gals and black and white and
and the guys, and they do the groups.
He's like, I've got $100 bill. I've got $100.
No.
No, okay. So I don't know the name of it, but the facilitator, you know, I don't know if it's what kind of a camp or group or whatever it is. They don't ever say that, but he's like, I got a $100 bill, and the first person who gets to me gets this $100 bill. So line up, and here's how we're going to start. Every time I say something that applies to you, take a step forward.
Oh, okay.
And so he says, I don't know, the first thing is like, my mom and dad are still married.
Yeah.
And so you see this group of people take a step forward.
Right. What a great visual.
Yeah. And he's like, I've never had to worry about where my next meal is going to come from. And you see this group
I don't have a felony.
Right. And so it gets to this point where, you know, it's a visual of the disparity. You know, and there are a few that never take a step forward.
Yeah.
And there's some that are literally, you know, up 50 feet away from me. And so he says, you know, look around, and you know, this is what the world is like, because those of you that are closest, like, you've been given a lot.
Right.
Like, you're starting this close without even having to try. Because none of the things that I just said had anything to do with you, any choices that you made, it's
that's
you know,
powerful.
Yeah, and then he's like, you know, look around, like some of these guys, some of the people that are behind you, if this was an even playing field,
would whoop your ass. They
you wouldn't have a
your
chance.
Ass. Yeah. There's a reason I call people who deal entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Like, they figure out a hole in the market. Not saying deal, people, like, don't at me and be like, my daughter's a drug dealer because you said so. No, but they figured out a hole in the market, and they put a business in. So it's like, when you break down skills, I think without shaming, it's so empowering.
It is.
So that's just a side, but I think so many people are so resilient, and the awareness of where, like, intersectionality hits and what it does. So, like, that's such a perfect segue, because your business practices hit that so well. Like, I don't know if you guys can, well, you can't see, but so he has a sign that says, hate has no home here. In the bathrooms there are flyers for the local like family crisis center if you are experiencing sexual assault, and there's like an anti-trafficking hotline that people can call. So like, your business practices are so rooted in community and being, fair is not the right word, but like equitable is maybe the right word. Can you talk about that? Because a lot of business owners don't do that. They say like, well, when I have enough money, when I make this amount of money, then I'll do these things, or when I'm this successful, then I'll do it. But you built it in from the beginning, which is awesome. So can you talk about that? Because it is dope. I love it.
So when we were putting the company together, and thinking about the kind of company that I would want to work for, and the kind of company that I want to be a part of, the kind of thing that I could go home and be proud of creating. And we're a brewery. Like, when we break it down to the bare basics, Andrew makes beer, and then we turn around and we sell that beer.
Yeah.
And I've said this before to people, and I'm a state and national sanctioned drug dealer because alcohol is a drug. So that also is not lost on me. But
entrepreneur, right? Then we're full circle.
So right, and so it was.
So all those kids dealing can become pharmacists and make it legal. I love
there
it.
you go. So it was, realizing that we wanted to open up a brewery because there was, like you pointed out, it's finding a hole in the market, looking at something that somebody's got skills in, something that they're good at, something that they enjoy, something that you can make a living off of, whether it's a side hustle or the main thing, and there was a lot of arrows that just kept pointing in the direction of like, do this. And so when sometimes people ask like, oh, when you were 12, did you dream about owning a brewery? Like, no, like I didn't think about owning a brewery until it was after Kristen and I were married. So we were married in 2008.
You better get it right.
Yeah, we were married in 2008 because I was 30. And so it wasn't until we met Andrew and a couple years later. So I was 33, 34.
I think you also have to have a well-tuned inner compass, because the universe can throw signs all day.
All day.
But if you're not paying attention to them, or if you're not tuned into them, and that's something I teach all the time, is how to like pay attention to how you feel when you're making decisions. A lot of people don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So like when you were like, well, I'm going to move back to North Carolina, but you were 5, I said the same thing to my parents when I was 8. I'd never been to this state until I moved here. Like, I had never set foot in the state until I started looking at properties, and everyone's like, why'd you move to North Carolina? And I'm like, listen, when the universe knocks, I just answer the door. I'm not just like, why are you knocking? I'm like, okay, thank you for whatever you're trying to give me, and I'm just going to roll with it. So you had a lot of signs pointing you to it.
And so, and the laying out the principles of the 3 tenets, I guess, is that as a business owner, as a company, the first people that we need to take care of is ourselves, and not from the line our pockets, let's get rich standpoint, but from how are we going to take care of our employees, how are we going to make sure that it's a place that they want to work, how are we going to make sure that they feel heard, what kind of practices are we going to have to make sure that the people that have supported us the whole way I feel like they've been taken care of, and that they've been heard, and that it hasn't been lost that we didn't do this on our own.
Yeah. Also, side note, you have one of the best loyalty programs I have ever seen. I talk to David about it all the time, and I'm like, that is the smartest thing I have ever seen. So like, we'll get to that after, because your loyalty programs are just freaking dank. So you prioritize taking care of the people who invest in you, because when someone works for you, they're investing in you.
Right, and the mentality there is, if I take care of them and do my best to affect the things that I can control here that affect them, then they'll be able to do their jobs better. And let me take that term better back. They can do their job effectively, and they can do their job efficiently.
Yeah.
Because the first part is be able to do the job. And as you do the job and you do it multiple times, you will get faster at it, and efficiency is not necessarily about quickness.
Better.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's better. That's where sometimes for me the word, I'm not sure. The word better just seems, I don't know, broader. I don't know.
Say a lot.
Yeah. Whatever.
Up level of your skills.
So if I take care of them, then it hopefully will up their effectiveness and up their efficiency in the job, and they feel successful. Because if they're feeling successful in their job, then it's something that is a little bit easier to come to. It's a little bit easier to deal with change when it happens, because the change happens, but I know what to do. And so taking care of our employees then turns around to taking care of our customers. And if we're able to take care of our customers and it's a place where they feel safe, it's a place where they enjoy, it's a place where they feel welcome, then that turns into our ability to then take care of the community. Because without taking care of our employees and without taking care of our customers, I can't necessarily turn around and say, Family Crisis Center, what can we do for you?
Right.
You know, and the reality is that those organizations and those 501(c)s and the other certain businesses, they're doing things that are grander. They're doing things that have a larger effect on people's lives. They're changing lives. They're protecting people. They're taking people to the next step, and we make beer. So, to be able to show support for the community in the ways that we have, and there's a million other ways I wish that we could. It's how we take this thing that we do that is not necessary, people enjoy it, and then turn it into something, some kind of a service, some kind of a time or donation to people that are on the daily changing lives.
Yeah.
And so that was always the plan, is take care of the people that are here, that have chosen to be with us. Let's take care of the people that have chosen to support the business, and then let's take care of the people that choose to do good in the world. And so that's what we choose to do. Yeah.
I think that's a really good evaluation of your strength too, because if your strength is to run a business, and Joel has just a really good head for business. Some people have it, I don't. He does. It's phenomenal. When you realize where your zone of genius is, and your zone of genius is creating a community and building a business, and when you stay in that zone, then you allow other people to operate in their zone of genius, and then you can support them in the way that you're talking about, because a lot of those organizations, they need volunteers, but they also need money. So if you're not taking care of you and your employees and your customers, you don't have money, and so then you can't support these things. So it's all very connected.
I've had some people who say, it seems like you guys give away a lot, and we do, and typically the follow-up to that is, well, you don't tell everybody about it, and we don't, and I've had our CPA and our bookkeeper tell me multiple times, if people knew half the stuff you guys did, they would be in awe, and it's well, we don't do it for that reason. It's the people who know, and we don't need to. We're not doing it for the purpose of marketing.
It's like people who help someone who's homeless, but then they film it. Yeah. Why are you just give the damn people the money?
Just do
I understand, as a business, I own a business, so there's something to be said for volunteering with your company shirt on.
Sure, absolutely.
Or making a donation and putting it on your website and saying, we give 10% of proceeds to these nonprofits, we support them in the community. But you're right. If you're only doing it for filming,
we let people know, we used to do, and it stopped. Pardon me. It stopped with the pandemic. It's something that we have been looking at starting up again, trying to figure out how to do it better. But we had a program for a year and a half, almost 2 years, called Saintly Sundays, where every month 10% of sales went to different organizations. So there's the Boys and Girls Club. There was the American Cancer Society with their it's basically like a cancer house. It's a place for families to go and stay while other family members are in the hospital. I don't know the proper term for it, so I don't mean any offense calling it, but I just call it. But the Arboretum project here in the city. There was a lot of things. So once a month we did something, and people knew about it. Some people came in explicitly to support it, and we did that because it was a small way to be able to say, here's a guarantee, here's what's coming. We just did the Red Wolf beer for the Red Wolf conservation efforts, and so there are times trumpet what you're doing. And there are times to just say, this is just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of everybody needing to know. And it's just doing the right thing. And so sometimes I think that the idea of doing virtue marketing is
it has its place.
yeah.
But it shouldn't be your whole marketing campaign.
No. So,
yeah.
but that was it. We wanted to be able to create a place where people were taken care of on both sides of the bar, both sides of the glass, and to be able to then turn around and support our community, because this is home. And I've got a 6-year-old, she's gonna be 7 in March, little girl, and this is where she's growing up. So the idea of being able to looking at it from that very selfish aspect of going, we're doing this in Asheboro because we appreciate what it is, we appreciate where it can go, and this is where she's going to be, and this is where she's going to grow up, and if we can in some way help make it a better place that she's going to grow up in, then why don't we do that? And in that, if we're doing that for doing those kinds of things with that mentality, then those are the kinds of things that hopefully are going to affect a larger group of people in certain subsets in certain areas at certain times, and it's just creating that community feel that big business is not looking out for the small communities. The number of the large businesses that national, multinational businesses that are around here in Randolph County, the number of them that have pulled back on their charitable giving because they don't have to anymore. Right. If you talk to a lot of these 501c3s and these charitable organizations, these people that are doing good, most of their donations are coming from individuals or for small businesses, not the big guys who could literally hand them a check for $25,000.
And it would be
not even a blip on the radar.
Nothing. It would be nothing.
Right? And so, if we want a community that's going to be strong, it comes from the people and the small businesses that make up that community. And so that's what we got to do. We have to support our community if we want it to be solid, and if we want it to grow, if we want it to become strong. And the hope in that is that if we do it, somebody else goes, well, if they can, I can.
Yeah. Well, if they build it into their business plan, then I can build it into mine.
Right. And it doesn't have to be $25,000.
Right.
It could be 4 hours on a Saturday at our Daily Bread Soup Kitchen with Gene and his people over there doing good for a community. It could be $100 check. If that's what you can do. Yeah. To anybody up to the Family Crisis Center, then do it. Like it's amazing what it will do, not only for the community, but then when your customers realize that you're vested,
right,
how that affects them, and then when your employees realize that you're vested, it's
like a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So for people that are maybe listening to this and they're like, well, I wanted to volunteer forever, I wanted to do that, like, obviously the plan is to do it.
Yeah.
But like, give people a framework. So do they just call and they're like, hey, I want to volunteer, or hey, I want to donate money?
Yeah,
people can't say they don't know what to do, right? Because I don't know what to do. Okay, well, figure it out.
At that point,
what do people do?
If it's somebody who's not done a lot or has never done anything, the very first thing I would say is you got to know what your values are. You got to know what's important to you. And so, like for us, we look at veterans organizations. We look at organizations that the intention is to make people's daily life better. We look at organizations that help orphans and foster children, and there's other community level projects in there. But those three things, and families and children at risk as well. So those are the things that we really kind of hone in on. It's not to say that a dog rescue, a pet, an animal rescue isn't important. It doesn't have value.
Right.
But if I'm weighing an animal rescue versus an organization that is helping orphan children or foster children, and I've got $100 and they're both asking for $100, I can tell you from our standpoint, more than likely it's going to go to the orphans and the foster programs. And those are our values. Not everybody has them. And then there's businesses that the animals will win out. So be it. You know? And so it's figuring out what's important to you, what your values are, and then finding the organizations that do that and do it well. And at that point, before you give $1, you need to give an hour. Time is our most valuable resource because it's the only resource we have that we can't get back. Once you give that hour, it's gone. And that hour of doing whatever it is, whatever is asked of you, whatever is requested, as long as it's within your wheelhouse and you're comfortable with it and it's ethical and it's good for them and it's good for you, then you go and do that. Because that's gonna have an impact on you. Because you're actually gonna see what's going on. You're gonna hear, potentially hear conversations. You're gonna interact with somebody with what your discretionary time, how it affected them in a positive way, and they needed you there for that 5 minutes or for that hour. And so when you've got to give your time first, because that organization that you were about to give $1 to, and you spend an hour with them and realize, no, they're not really doing. Their mission is not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
The way they're doing things is not the way.
It's a good way to figure out what they actually do in the community.
Right, and then that impact on you to come back and go, wow, and to think about it, and to think about the things that you saw, the things you heard, the things you experienced, the things that you did, and hopefully then be able to then look up and look around you and go, oh, this is where I am.
Yeah.
I had a free hour to go do this thing, and now I don't have to deal with it again if I never want to.
Yeah.
But the people that you're doing that for, whether it, those people, say people in need, for example.
The people they're supporting.
The people they're supporting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like they don't have a choice.
Right.
They're there. That's it. That's their reality. So that helps with a level of creating a level of gratitude in yourself for where you are. It helps create a level of understanding, because we can sympathize all day, but to actually and empathy is another level of it. But to get to an understanding is way deeper. And at that point, you make that decision of, do I want to go ahead and give that $1? The hope is that you go, I want to give that $1, and I want to give another hour.
Yeah.
I want to go back and I want to ask that question. You have me do this. Give me something more. And so to create that mindset of that servant's heart, that servant's mindset of, I've got the time, I have the resources. How can I help? Because what you're doing is greater than.
Yeah.
And is more than, and it's about making a genuine difference in the world. I want to be a part of that. And at that point you can argue, well, you're doing it so it makes yourself feel good, and it doesn't matter. At that point,
the end result is people get help. Who cares?
If the ends justify the means,
Who cares?
in this standpoint, if you're helping a family get back on their feet, and you get to walk away and you feel good about yourself for doing it,
yeah, who cares?
go for it.
Doesn't matter.
Like that's it's part of it, and we should feel good about being able to help people.
Well, we're wired to. So I think a lot of people, specifically a lot of people I work with, mental health impacts community. And so a lot of people lose community because they're struggling.
Absolutely.
And one of the most powerful things that I see is when people reinvest in building a community and in cutting out toxic people from the community. Like get rid of the assholes, but then reinvest in people who are supportive, who are doing good things. And something I find is a lot of, this is going to sound really harsh, and I don't mean it to, but it is what it is. A lot of people just navel gaze all day long. They're like, my problems, and I'm struggling, and what about this? And I'm just like, I'm a therapist, but I swear to God, the amount of times that people are obsessed with themselves and their problems, I'm just like, if people hear nothing that I say in therapy, one is like, your thoughts don't matter, most of them aren't real, they're nonsense, stop paying attention to them.
Right.
But the down the drain, the rabbit hole of suck thoughts that people get into, one of the best ways to like get away from those is to literally stop being so obsessed with yourself and your problems. And that's kind of like where you're speaking to, is it gives you perspective and saying, oh, okay, my problems are not that bad, which in and of itself is helpful, but what's even more helpful is you literally just stop obsessing about yourself. And it's such a pattern that I see with people where they're like, my life and my life and my life and my life, and I'm just like, shut up about your life. Like, shut up. Go deal with other people's lives and help them. If you're so busy, this is going to turn into a rant, but if you're so busy being focused on yourself and your own problems, all that does is grow. Mm-hmm. And so once you start being in the community and giving an hour, 1 hour can change your whole perspective. You've seen it because you do it and you get it. And it's something I see all the time where people are like, well, I don't know what to do to feel better. And it's like, do literally anything else, but think about how much you hate your life all day. Count grains of sand. Who cares? But even better, go help someone.
Absolutely.
Stop being so obsessed with yourself. And I don't know if it's like a uniquely American thing because we're such an individualistic culture.
Yeah.
I think that has something to do with it. But yes, like reinvesting in your community, whether it's a personal, the people around you community, or literally your community, is it raises all ships. Yep.
And at that point, if you, every organization that does anything anywhere has got a phone number.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is call.
And probably a website.
And some of them rarely get phone calls. Yeah. And they get checks all day long, but they don't get a phone call. And somebody just saying, hey, I want to learn a little bit more. Mm-hmm. How can I help? What can I do? If they don't need your help, if they don't need your time, they'll tell you. Because there are organizations that is like, look, we've gone down that path, we tried it, and it didn't work for whatever reason. If you want to help,
give us money.
Send us a check. That'll be the best thing you can do.
Well, because they also know where the best. It's like when people, a lot of people don't understand food pantries get discounts, like wholesale discounts on food. So a lot of people will donate foods that aren't appropriate, where if they would donate money, they get the money goes, the dollar goes much farther than a dollar for them. So just really asking, what do you need?
It's it may be the cynical part of me when I see like in food drives and I see people putting in boxes of cake, like Duncan Hine cake mixes.
Like,
I'm like,
bro, they need
that's
eggs
not.
and milk.
That's not.
What are you doing?
That's not. That is a food.
It is a food.
And it will and can bring joy.
But they need eggs and milk.
But they need eggs and milk to do that. Do they have those essentials? And so, when I see, when I see a food drive happening, and there are no parameters around it,
like a list of essentials.
Like here's what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. AKA, don't just go and clean out your cupboards and pull out the things that you have been sitting there for 6 months, and you're like, oh yeah, we don't eat this anymore. Yeah. And throw it in there, because when you put a can of black olives in there, like,
what are they gonna do with that?
you cleaned out your closet, right? And so, or your cupboard. I'm sorry. So
unless you keep canned food in the closet, I don't.
I don't either.
Does, I don't know.
But it reach out. The website or phone number. Give them a call and ask and say, what kind of support do you need? What can I do? And they will tell you. And in using the terminology, what kind of help do you need? That sometimes, depending on who's hearing that, they hear that in a negative way, or they, help is such a broad term.
That's on them though, honestly. Like if you're trying to support and they get mad, it's like
no. I'm not saying they get mad, but
okay.
when you say how can I help? To me, the stronger way of putting that, the clearer language is how can I support you?
Yeah.
And so asking them that, then it could be at that point they might say, oh, we just put something up on Facebook. If you could just reshare it, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because or we got a couple flyers. If you can just get those, and a local business, see if they'll put them in their place, or we need $100 right now. Like we need $100 to be able to do this thing. Can you?
They'll tell you.
Or we're doing some kind of an event. And we need bodies there.
Mm-hmm.
If you can show up with 2 people, it would be immensely helpful.
Yeah.
And so asking how I can support, I think, is a more powerful and a stronger way than saying, how can I help?
Yeah. And I think it clarifies your purpose. Does that make sense? It clarifies that your role is literally a supportive role,
right,
and not like the main kahuna.
Right. Yeah, because and that's where, and again, it's how things are heard, how things are taken. Sometimes when, in my experience, saying, how can I help you? Somebody goes, I don't need help, I got this.
Right.
Well,
it's like, I know you got this.
Yeah, I know you do. I just want to be there for you.
Yeah.
And so, changing that language to, all right, cool, how can I support you in what you're doing?
It is different.
It opens up people to go, oh, well, I already know I'm doing this, this, and this. If you could just be around later so I can give you a call just to double check things. Cool, I can do that. Because even with our employees, like I do my best to avoid that. How can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, and it's how, whatever experiences they had in the past, if you admit that you need help, then you are a failure, or you never knew what you needed to do in the first place, or you're admitting some kind of a weakness. But how can I support you? Just says, oh, you're here for me.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
No, that's a good explanation. I like that.
You've done something good when the interviewer has to stop and think about what you just said.
Yeah, sometimes, like, normally I'm really good and I have the next question, but, like, so here's the funny way that I prepare for interviews. I don't.
Yeah.
Because my brain doesn't work that way. So, like, I've asked some people to interview and they're like, would you have questions beforehand? And I'm like, oh, no. Like, I'm never going to give you questions beforehand. No, that's just not how my brain works. So I have to think on the fly. It's
all right. I get that. You let the conversation take its course.
Yeah, that's what I find is a lot more valuable. Like, sometimes there's points that people want to hit. Like, I'm interviewing a woman later today who is a poet, which is, so obviously we're going to talk about that and, like, her, like, health struggles. So, like, clearly we're going to hit those. But within that, like, I'm just someone who operates in much more of a framework. So I'm like, I need, like, a frame, a structure, and then I need to, like, the way that I explained it to someone the other day was, like, I need a pool, and I need, like, rocks that don't move, so I make sure I hit the rocks, but everything else is jello.
Right.
And I can just, like, put things, my brain is weird, but I can just put things where I need it. So, yeah, plus we're at, like, 50 minutes right now, which is about the time that we finished. So, so we hit it anyway. Yay us. We are awesome.
Agreed.
Yeah. What do you want to leave people with?
Right now, in the moment, in the present, the biggest thing I can say is going back to that supporting local. The next couple months is going to be a struggle for a lot of small businesses. Just it is. So any way that you can show support to your local businesses, your small businesses, the people in your community that are doing good, and you want to see make it to the other side of this whole mess that we're in. Support them. That's
support
it.
Your community.
Support your community.
Yeah.
Support local is more significant now than ever. We got our you see those numbers all the time with all these huge macro businesses that have doubled their wealth over the past. They doubled their wealth over the past year, and
But it
we're so I don't have enough beer in front of
that's
me.
a whole different. It's a whole different interview.
Yeah, that's an interview. I don't think.
Yeah, so
I
they're
don't think we
doubling
put
their
that on.
wealth, and
Yeah.
small businesses are closing forever.
Right. And so in that aspect, that's it. It's support local, and you can take that into so many ways. It's not just supporting your businesses, but your neighbors. You know, with the idea of being a neighbor is so different now than what it was, you know, when we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think about when we growing up, and you know, we lived on a street in the country. Or I say street, we lived on a road, and in the country, and every neighbor was at least 2 to 5 tenths of a mile away. You know, but we knew all the names. We had all the phone numbers.
Yeah.
Our parents were fine with letting us just. Our parents were fine with letting us just go anywhere and do anything. Not because they knew the neighbors would call us on anything, but they knew that if something happened, that we could go to the house that's five houses down, nearly a mile away, because we knew who they were.
Yeah.
We knew their name. We didn't hang out with them. We knew their name. We knew their phone number. We knew they were decent people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if something happened, we, as a kid, could go there.
Yeah.
And be taken care of, right? So, supporting local is not just about businesses. It's about the people that are around you, your friends, your family, your neighbors, the people that you're eating dinner with at home. It's everybody's in an odd mindset right now, whether they want to admit it or not. And unless you ask, there's very few people that are just going to tell you.
And we have the perfect question. How can I support you?
That's it, and that's it. And it will resonate. It'll resonate with your significant other. It'll resonate with your parents. It'll resonate with your kids.
Everybody.
Yeah. Just how can I be there for you? And I think there's a lot of times that we assume that everybody knows that you are.
Yeah. Something I run into all the time is people say, I shouldn't have to ask. And I'm just like, okay, well then die sad. Like, what is... Here's a window into how I am as a therapist. I'm literally like, die sad then. Like, what is your other option?
Yeah.
You just die pissed off that nobody helps you? It's so ingrained in people. But part of my job is to call out nonsense.
Yeah.
And that is, I shouldn't have to ask. Okay, well then die sad about it. Like, but no one's gonna help you, and then you're screwed anyway. So ask, guys. Ask if you need help, and then ask how you can support other people.
Use your words.
Use your words. People don't. It's like, oh man, the simple things that I teach that people like just don't know, and I'm just like, oh, your life is gonna get so much easier. So much easier. So how do people find Four Saints?
Great question. At the end of the rainbow. No. We have a website, foursaintsbrewing.com, FOUR, Saints Brewing, all together, one word, .com. Everything's on there, our hours, our beers that are on tap, our merchandise, our short story. It's all, that's be the easiest place. And then it's got, that can lead them to Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Y'all, their Instagram is very cool. What's your Instagram handle?
At Four Saints Brewing.
Yeah.
Keep it all about as same as we can.
That would make sense. Let's do less work more efficiently.
Yes.
That's like everyone I talk to when I talk about owning a business, I'm like, I want to work as little as possible and make a buttload of money. Like, that's what I want. I want to make as much money as possible in the least amount of time as possible.
It's called efficient and effective.
Yeah. People just look at me like I have three heads when I say that. And they're like, you want to work less? And I'm like, are you joking? Do you want to work more? No.
Owning a business, anybody that owns a business with the idea that it's solely about making money will never be satisfied.
No.
But if you're at, I guess you could say life as well, just life in general. If you put your goal there as freedom,
love that.
then instead of financial,
right?
Then you'll find
because there's always ways to
contentment.
make more money.
Yeah.
You know, but sometimes it entails doing too much, and it's like, if I'm not enjoying my life and if I can't,
Right.
freedom, right? And
It's freedom.
what was I just gonna say when you said that? Brain fart. Anyway, it was probably brilliant, but whatever. We lost it now. But yeah,
So
freedom.
brilliant,
Like
just
you
like-
do these things to enjoy your life. Why else are we here? Not to enjoy our life and make other people's lives easier.
Right.
That's just what I think.
No,
Like,
yeah,
if you're not
you-
having fun, or you just feel sorry for you.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
like,
And-
please have more fun in your
Yeah,
life.
and when you start something, you do have to make sacrifices in the beginning,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and with the long view
Right.
that I'm doing this so that
Mhm.
I don't. There can be a random Friday that I go, I'm not going to go to work.
Oh,
Everything's being taken care of, not because I don't appreciate what I have, not because it's me being snobby about it, but it's because I want to go have lunch with my little girl at school and surprise her.
Yeah.
And I have the freedom to be able to do that
Yeah.
without everything falling apart.
Mhm.
Or we want to take a weekend to just be
Yeah.
and do stuff around the house. We just want to take care of the
Right.
house.
Or just like watch Bridgerton, which by the way
I
everyone
have
loves.
not.
Oh my god, it's so.
According to social media, it's a thing.
It's Jane Austen meets Gossip Girl, and I'm literally obsessed. It is so good.
That's I don't.
Whatever. David watches it.
I will. I am glad
He
David
does it.
watches it.
I'm like, David,
I
let's
don't-
watch it. He goes, if we must, but he watches it. He
he
loves it. He goes, if we must, and I'm just like,
Right. I get it. I get it.
okay, but you love it.
So yeah, the goal is freedom. The goal is
The
freedom.
goal is freedom. Whatever that looks like for you. For everyone,
Right.
it's different, but
Absolutely.
lots of good nuggets. All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you. Yeah,
for
this is-
coming on here and being so awesome.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. You're beautiful.